Hello everyone, Nordic Beast here, and welcome back to the Shipyard. So first off, this is actually a remake of my Shipyard world. I had to do it because the two moons I was using were technically planets, and their gravitational influence was actually intersecting with Thera, this planet down here. And so I don't know how to remove them, so I just remade the world. And actually the way I made it, originally it was an empty world, so there's no asteroids in between. But this one I remade with asteroids, and I found out when you place a planet in a world that's just asteroids, when you reload the room, it'll remove the asteroids within the influence of the actual planet itself. So you can place planets without having to worry about, asteroids clipping through or anything like that. So I did add one moon, which is a Europa-type moon, you see over there, and I put my shipyard, Trondheim. Trondheim. There we go. So, also I'm building a city down there called Nordsville. Yeah, real creative, right? And I'm still placing like my standard little outpost down there, so I'm just kind of rebuilding everything. And I wanted to try a city because I found a bunch of pre-built buildings that you can put together. So I was thinking about building a city and putting it down there. So, which I'll get to that eventually. It's not going to be in this episode, obviously. So I figured I'd show the ships I've been working on. So next up is this here, the Balder, which, by the way, that's the Thor, which you probably remember from last episode. The Balder I ended up making afterwards based on, let's see if I can find it here, this guy right here. So I made a submarine at one point, and I had it in my blueprints. I happened to stumble upon it, and I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, make a ship similar to this. And so I kind of built off that theme, and the Balder is what came of it, which it's a small escort destroyer. It's meant to defend like large ships like the Thor against smaller threats. And that's pretty much it. And it itself could independently escort, it could patrol, as well as do hit-and-run tactics on its own. And it's got the single rocket launcher, rocket turret up front, 4 Gatling turrets, which 2 on each side, and very, very good arcs of fire there. It has the 2 interior turrets on top of the bridge there, as well as one down here, which are designed for personnel defense and missile defense. So this one isn't as, I don't feel it's as well built as like the Thor or this ship here, which is called the Sif, which I'll get to in a minute. If anything breaks on this one, the whole thing is one room. It's all one room pressurized, so it's not as durable. And it's like 1 layer light armor down here, 1 layer of light armor on top. But then on the sides, we actually have heavy armor, which usually, your engagements are from the side anyway. Usually one side or the other from the front, which the front has heavy armor behind this nose cone. So it is actually pretty tough from the front and sides. Top and bottom, back, quite weak. And like I said, if you puncture through the armor and it depressurizes, the whole thing depressurizes. So go ahead and come in through here. Oop. Open the doors too quickly. Alright. So we have 3 cryo bays right here. And these are oxygen vents. It's like a crew commons area. Got our med bay. And then I realized after a while that these are the only 3 cargo containers in the ship, but it's really all it needs. You don't need a lot on a ship like this. Which, I mean, there's these individual ones here, but these are supposed to be like crew members' cargo pods. So, and I added an extra cryo bay right here. I figure a crew of 4 would be pretty good for a ship like this. So, this is technically like the battle bridge, a little bit more protected. So you got your pilot's position, maybe a gunner's position here. But then we have our full bridge up here. Oop. All total, we've got 1.1 million kilograms. So not too bad. It's actually quite maneuverable. It handles really well. Got the 2 large thrusters in the back and 1 small one on the bottom back there. I honestly put that in for aesthetics. It has 5 thrusters in every direction, the small ones. And then reverse, it has 8 small thrusters, which is not too bad for a ship this size. The view is actually quite good out of here because, unlike the Thor, it does not have the double glass. With a ship this size, I don't have the room to do all the things I want. But I'd say overall it's actually a decent ship. It would be very inexpensive to produce. Which, by the way, it does have, back behind there, it does have a single jump drive, and it can go 2,000 kilometers in a single jump, and it runs off of a single large reactor. Sorry about me being all stuffed up. Oh, this weather here in Michigan is so bad. If any of you guys watched my videos last year, usually about this time I tend to get stuffed up. And in Michigan, we go from cold to hot to just about everything in between in a day. So it can be pretty horrific sometimes. Okay, so in between these, after building the Thor and then the Balder, I wanted an in-between size ship. And originally, let's see if I can find it here. Next one? Yeah. I rebuilt my Shipyard, which was in an old episode. Originally, I was going to build the Shipyard for the NID server as a defensive ship. It was like a monitor. It was all heavy armor, and it had just enough weapons that it was self-sustainable. You could park it somewhere, and it would defend against ships, was the general idea. So I tried to rebuild it, and I do like it, but I don't feel it fits the same aesthetic as the Balder and the Thor. So it is finished, and I do like it. Well, externally it's not finished. I still need to do lights and things like that, and I may use it and post it as, a ship. But, again, it didn't quite fit the theme. So I restarted, and with it here, I built this ship. As I said before, it's the Sif, which, for those who don't know Norse mythology, of course, Thor is the thunder god. Sif was his wife, which she was quite the shield maiden herself. And then Balder is actually the favored son of Odin. So, which I really like this ship, and after I was done with it, I was so happy with the way it looked. I'm like, I gotta name it the Balder. It's such a pretty ship. I like the aesthetics of it. So the Sif aesthetically is obviously very similar to the Thor, but smaller. It's a cruiser. It's armed with. It has a total of 8 Gatling turrets. It's got the 4 in the nose and 4 near the tail. It has 4 missile or rocket turrets here in the midsection. It has 2 interior turrets up here, and I don't think I put any down below. Doesn't really need it. So, yeah, which there's the connector for it. Yeah, the connector for it's up here on this one. I couldn't remember if it's back there or not. But I went with 2 landing bays here, which it's just really a straight through, but there is enough that you could land like 2 shuttles in here, or a fighter and a shuttle if you wanted, depending. It's roomy enough, but I set it back in the armor. As you see here, I have a nice layer of armor, unlike the Thor, which, as you see, it's kind of flush with the outside, and I kind of built around it. With this one, I wanted to set it back. I feel the Sif is a far more advanced design, like it has better features about it. The way I built it was I built a heavy armor tube this time. With the Thor, I didn't know how big I was going to make it. It just kind of ended up the way it is. The Sif was purposely made the way it is. So yeah, it was a heavy armor tube on the inside, and I built around it. I got the general shape and just kind of went from there. And again, the only part of the heavy armor tube I ended up cutting out was for the blast door blocks for the landing bay back here, because I do find them better for landing bay. They don't deform. They're a little bit lighter, and they're pretty resistant against thrusters. So go ahead and show you the inside real quick, which, by the way, I do have 2 interior turrets in here as well. Ah, stupid doors. Alright, so this is a commons area, just kind of like on the Balder. Now in this one, each room is separately pressurized, well, with the exception of down here. Ooh, come on, let's get up here. And this room here. That's all one, but in here is the crew quarters, separately pressurized. It has its, where is it? Oh yeah, down here, the air vent. And I don't have any set crew for this ship, but I mean, it's got, what, 8 seats, I think? Yeah, a total of 8. I had to think about it for a minute. So, but I mean, I think a crew of 6 would probably be reasonable for this ship. Now you come up here, this is kind of a commons area as well, but this is supposed to be like the backup battle bridge, and even the bridge up here, the flight bridge, has its own air vent and is pressurized and sectioned off from the rest of the ship. So even if you're up here and say, like, the bridge gets destroyed, the rest of the ship is still pressurized. So one solid chunk of heavy armor around the entire crew area, Everything is separately pressurized. So, and then last but not least is the cryo bay and med bay, which again, in and of itself, is pressurized. It runs on 3 jump drives and a single reactor. Now, the single reactor is a little underpowered. Most of the time, it won't go into red, which, by the way, 2 of the jump drives are back there. 1 is up front, just for spacing reasons, just because there wasn't enough space up here. Which, by the way, there's also 3 large cargo containers, so this can actually carry quite a healthy supply of munitions. So all in all, it weighs almost 6 million kilograms. It has the 2 large thrusters here and in every direction except for in the tail. So much like the Thor, it maneuvers in all directions pretty much equally except for acceleration, which it has the 4 thrusters back here and a couple of the small ones. And it's not particularly maneuverable. It actually turns and maneuvers better than the Thor, but not nearly as well as the Balder, which the Balder handles quite well. Even with only 2 gyros, it maneuvers really, really well. So it turned out pretty well. And as you see, like, the aesthetics on the outside and stuff, it's quite different from the Thor. It does share quite the kinship in the way it looks. I'd say much like if you look at an F-22 Lightning II, and then if you what do they name it though? The Raptor? Isn't that what they ended up naming it? Yeah, it was the Raptor. That's right, because the F-35 ended up becoming the Lightning II. Yeah, what a dumb name for a fighter, the Raptor. I always thought and the Lightning II would have been a better name for the F-22, because the F-22 is an actual, good airplane, while the F-35 is a piece of garbage, because they can't even get the damn thing to work yet. But anyway, they do look very similar in their layouts. Or even if you look at an F-15 compared to an F-22. F-22 is bigger and more advanced, but they share an aesthetic kinship. So, alright, enough about that. Now to some of the ships that I've upgraded. So, speaking of the Lightning, this is my Lightning, which this is actually the C model. Originally, this is one of the earliest fighters I put out on the workshop. Originally, the Gatling guns on the A model were underneath here, and same on the other side. The B model spread out the guns like you see, and this is the C model, which adds more thrusters. Originally, it only had 2 small thrusters on the side, which, with the way dampeners are now, it's crappy. Like, you fly all over the place. So I added more thrusters on the side, which then I added these wheels ground down in here just for detail, as well as the LCDs with the warning symbols on them. And I repainted the whole design. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same. And, oh, that's right, I moved the lights. Originally, these lights were over, I think, here? Or here? Yeah, I think they were here. And I kind of switched them around, so. But overall, this model handles quite well. It doesn't handle, well, I mean, maneuvering-wise, gyro-wise, it actually handles better than my Valkyrie, but its thruster and thruster-weight ratio is the same as, well, scratch that. Its weight is the same as my Valkyrie, but it doesn't have as much thrust in all directions. So the Valkyrie actually handles a little bit better, though it's not as gyro-maneuverable. But this fighter has the advantage of having the reloadable rocket launchers, and is smaller than the Valkyrie. So this would actually make for really good, it'd make a good compact fighter to put on ships like these two that aren't designed really to carry fighters, but if they need to, the Lightning would be a good fighter for it. Overall, this is a pretty good ship. I really like this one. This is one of my favorite fighters I've ever made. Aesthetically, it's good looking. Somebody on one of my workshop posts for the B model said, "Why does this look like the fighter from The Last Starfighter?" Well, because it has that H shape. If you ever look at the fighter from Last Starfighter, I didn't do that on purpose, just kind of ended up that way. Which, if you've never seen that movie, I mean, it's pretty dated nowadays. It came out in the 80s. But if you're a sci-fi nerd, it's definitely worth watching. That's a good movie. So, next up is my rebuild of the Mimir. Now, this is not quite finished. It's pretty close. I still need to just put the final touches on it and name it and such. And which, by the way, this and the Sif are not on the workshop yet, which they will be, as well as the Lightning C and that ship back there. So I didn't do anything to the Dead of Winter. She's just still kind of sitting here from last time. So anyway, yeah, so this is my complete rebuild of the Mimir, because the Mimir had issues trying to break atmosphere, because it only had 2 large ion thrusters, and it just wasn't enough. Had enough atmospheric thrust, but I decided to make sure that I went overkill. There's that whole theory of you put a big enough engine on anything and it'll fly. That's what I did with the Mimir 2. It doubles the amount of atmospheric vertical thrusters. Originally the Mimir had 2, this one has 4. Like I said, it had 2 large ion thrusters, this one has 6. And then for forward flight in atmosphere, I decided to put 1 large atmospheric thruster in the tail like that, which I think looks pretty good, to be honest, which is rare for me to say about atmospheric thrusters, so, you know, I don't say that lightly. And it flies really well. I am so pleased with this design. It flies way better than my original Mimir. It has a bigger landing bay, as you see back here. And I like this here too, the cargo pods in between here. They're not conveyed, so they're, you know, individual. But the ship's designed for 2 crew members, which we have the base here. So these could be, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, grabbing your suit before you go through the airlock, you know. And I never realized this, that the jump drive's light is right here. So it has 2 cargo containers, which it can actually load up pretty heavily and still be able to break atmosphere into orbit. So, come up here, we have some seating, and here's our cockpit. Which the cockpit's almost identical to the original Mimir, like the window setup, so it still has quite the view out, which is very nice. Yeah, me and DHR Mike were playing with this the other day, and it was quite fun. We dropped one of the DHR Jeeps that I have out the back. Well, first, I put one in, and I was trying to lock it to the landing gear, and Mike started flying, and I started freaking out, but it stayed put. It didn't move. And then once I locked it in, I started flying, and then I dropped it out the back. Oh, sorry about that. And then, actually, he tried to land this on top of a building, and it phased through the building. Thanks, multiplayer space engineers. So, last but not least is my ripsaw. I built this actually in the old NID server. This was my salvage ship, and I didn't really get to use it very much. And I'm going to make use of it sometime soon. And yeah, it was basically, this is just a ship designed to go out and find wrecks and salvage them. It has, you know, the grinders on the front. It has this rocket pod. Basically, if you think something is dangerous at a distance, which, by the way, it has a camera right up here. Say you're looking at a target that you want to grind down, but it looks like something might be dangerous about it, like perhaps a turret, or it could be booby-trapped. You can detonate it with the rocket launcher. And then it has 2 turrets for defense on either side. Everything's very exposed on this ship, but that's kind of the point. It's supposed to be inexpensive, easy to build, and it's actually jump capable. It has a jump drive up here. And I believe it runs, yeah, just the 1 reactor there. The 1 large reactor. But I rebuilt the entire interior, which now has sliding doors. Originally it did not, because it was built before sliding doors. We have a bunk back here, just for aesthetic purposes. We have a couple of seats here. We have the gravity generator here. Originally it was upstairs, and I rebuilt the whole upstairs. So now we have the cryo bays and the med bay all set up for oxygen, and got a couple of batteries there too for backup. And that's pretty much it. I always liked the underslung cockpit. I always thought this was awesome. I know it's, I don't know, it might seem kind of silly, but it's just things like that that I enjoy. So my next episode is actually going to be about mods. I'm not going to show any of my creations or anything. I'm going to do like maybe like a top 10 or top 15 mods that I really enjoy and why. But for me, it's going to be mods that I feel match the game. Like when I look for mods, I like mods that don't look like they're mods. I like mods that look like they belong in the game. So like if you take a look at some of my mods here, there we go. Like these, even though they're colored, these turrets aesthetically match the game, as do Ravenbolt's, all his mods. You know, like his rocket mod and his compact weapons mod. which actually that's part of. The Gatling cannon mod here. A lot of it all looks like it matches. The guided missile mod looks like it belongs. You know, even like the custom models that they built for it look like they belong. The LCDs for the enhanced cockpit all look like they belong in the game, which I think is excellent. So I will probably show my, like I said, top 10 or 15, something like that, of my personal favorite mods that likely fit that theme, since that is how I choose and pick my mods and all that. So, which, by the way, Lord Wiseman is almost done with his whale shark. It is looking outstanding. So, externally, it's almost done. I think he did actually finish it last I spoke to him externally. He still needs to do the interior and color and all that. And he was like, you might want to do the episode to record this soon. I'm like, no, I'm going to wait till you are done. So, you know, people in the comments below, if you guys want to see his whale shark. God, that sounded dirty. So anyway, if you want to see that ship, comment down below and yell at him. Tell him, Wiseman, hurry up and finish it. So, yeah, and, oh, last thing is actually about Glorious Adventures. So, probably in the next day or two, I will be recording the first half of the next episode. The reason I haven't is I'm waiting on somebody. I need one person for the next episode. Then after that, I will be adding more people into it. So I talked about this a few months ago when I first came up with the idea of Glorious Adventures. If you're interested in being in it, even just in the background or just helping with things like that, let me know. I do know there's been plenty of people who expressed interest, like Next Freak. I know Next Freak really wanted to join and stuff like that. If you want to, please leave a comment down below and let me know. I will be more than happy to add you on Steam, and if you're interested, like I said, I need people for like background stuff, not necessarily any like speaking role, but just doing stuff in the background to make the world feel filled is my big thing about it. So yeah, go ahead and leave a comment and let me know. And if you guys enjoyed the episode, please hit that like button. I'll see you guys next time.